we were like, well, we'll have different people at different places and things that are related to them behind them.
Yeah.
And we almost did this, and we might still do this.
Yeah. It's good.
What are you saying?
We were going to put a picture.
Like a framed picture.
A framed, like golden framed picture of you and James White.
Just right behind my head all the time.
with like a heart, like put you in like the sweaters or something, like the Napoleon Dynamite guys, but your faces.
That would be awesome.
Well, welcome to episode 26 of the Liberator Podcast, and this is going to be a really special episode. We have in the Liberator office, pastor, apologist, theologian, abolitionist, Jeff Durbin.
Yeah.
So
Thanks.
Awesome.
I love your set.
Hey.
Room.
Yeah. As a man who actually has a set, you're like, wow, you guys.
No, I actually think this is better than our background, to be honest with you. I'm like, this is actually more creative.
Well, it's a bunch of junk. It
has a lot of character, so I really like it.
Yeah, it's biographical. Well, one of these days I'll run through it. But I think we've been trying to get you on here for a long time, but you're from Arizona.
Right.
And you're a busy man. And, so we're happy. Jeff is down for the Abolition Now Conference. He came just to preach the word to the saints that we had gathered here, and then also to just stand with us at the Oklahoma State Capitol.
Yep.
Just exhorting people in 17 degrees.
What is going on with your state right now, man? It is cold.
I don't know. It was very nice last week.
We were not prepared. We literally, on the way to the airport, we were all like looking at our things. We're like, wait a second, what's the temperature there right now?
Yeah.
And we're like, it says it's like 19 degrees, feels like 8. What's going on with that?
I think Greg McCourtney did some kind of rain dance in his office.
I don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
but our guys were like, they came back after the rally yesterday to the car, and they were like, that was honestly the coldest I've ever been in my entire life. And these are grown men. They've been places.
Yeah. But when we're doing the thing and all the different speakers are going up, they all want to go short.
Right.
Which I'm not saying, I think you should have said everything you said. But every single one of them, it's like, don't worry, man, I'm going to go short.
Right.
But then when you get up to that podium, I don't know if it's like a God thing or like a human all of a sudden you're not cold.
Yeah.
Because you're talking and you got people and they're paying attention. And so I think we were out there, I don't know, we'll have to look at timestamp, 45, 50 minutes. Minus the waiting and going, and but it was awesome. I don't know how many hundreds of people were there, but braved the weather and then went in. And so we had a day yesterday of just talking to legislators about abolition and the things we're doing. And then in the evening we had a conference and you spoke to us. And so that's all good. So thank you for coming.
Absolutely, it was my honor.
But the bigger thanks is thank you for doing what you do on a regular basis, because it is like probably, I would say, the number one. Maybe I would say 2. The number one, when I meet someone new and they're like, I got into this battle like a year ago or 2 years ago. They're going to abortion mills or they're doing some part of the thing. I'm like, oh yeah, well, how'd that happen? It's like, well, I was just like, I was an Apologia radio guy and watching it. And then whenever they started going with, I went with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, praise God, but you brought tons of people into the battle, and I know even some of these guys.
I feel like one of the things that's been most effective for the church to start going is just the example. Like, it's one thing for everyone to say, we know this is murder, we know it has to stop, but it's the example. And for me, it was the example of other believers who were going out. I was like, well, you can actually save babies out there. And then it was the example of other believers starting to confront this issue legislatively. Oh yeah, that's the application of everything we actually believe.
You can be Christian in politics?
Yeah.
Like, really?
Right. It was just a matter of saying, okay, this has to be done. And so I think it's the example of other believers laying their lives down that draws people in. So people can see it through End Abortion Now or the stuff that we're doing or we're talking about, but it's just a passing on of the baton. We saw them doing it and their faithfulness, and so now we're just living that out, and people are seeing it, so they're getting involved. And
yeah. Well, seeing you do stuff on like the Reason Rally with atheists and going to the abortion mills. I was watching your stuff back when I was like 18, probably 7 years ago, and I was on campus at the time doing evangelism. Well, very much less evangelism. I was trying to do
attempting to evangelize people.
It was like evidential apologetics is what I was doing on campuses, and I just found myself getting beat all the time. Like I had this guy Alden the atheist. I'd show up on campus, and this guy would come up with his scooter, and he'd just make me look like an idiot. Like he
sounds like a bit from a show. Aldo the atheist that comes running up on a scooter.
I'm already thinking, how would I draw that?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, so like he was actually a guy he knew Hebrew, and he was studying embryos. Like he was using human embryos in his research at it was the University of California.
Wicked dude right there.
Yeah, and so he would just come up, and everything that I tried to talk to him about, he was more knowledgeable. He knew more than me. He was smarter than me. And then I started watching your stuff because I was like, this doesn't work. Like I can't actually argue with people from an evidential perspective because they have these fundamental presuppositions, and some of them don't even believe they can know anything. So how am I supposed to present information to them? But I started watching your stuff, and you changed the way I thought about everything apologetically, and I started reading Bahnsen and all kinds of things like that. But then you started talking about abortion, and I was working for a pro-life organization at the time, and we are always like, we need pastors involved. Like we want them to come in and to talk about this. And then you start talking about it, and I'm like, he doesn't really agree with a lot of the stuff we're doing here. Like we're pushing heartbeat bills and stuff. And I think the Tony Lounger thing, I saw that, and I was like, well, that's really making me think. And that was the beginning of our conflict at Created Equal, because James was getting in trouble there for criticizing Tony Lounger rightly for the stuff that he was doing. Yeah. And that was just kind of like world shaking for me, because this guy that I already liked, that I thought was like awesome apologetically, I wanted to emulate that. Now he's saying stuff about abortion, and it's kind of going against everything.
And I want to add something. When he first got here and we were building the set, we were like, well, we'll have different people at different places and things that are related to them behind them. Yeah. And we almost did this, and we might still do this.
Yeah. It's good.
We were going to put a picture.
Like a framed picture.
A framed, like golden framed picture of you and James White.
Just right behind my head all the time.
with like a heart, like put you in like the sweaters or something, like the Napoleon Dynamite guys, but your faces.
That would be awesome.
And we were gonna do it, and I guess we didn't do that because we didn't do it.
Yeah, it seemed like we were like making fun or something, but that's not. I was like,
I want a picture of fun. I would have thought it was hilarious. I truly believe this. It wasn't me that made this up, but I think it was Doug Wilson that said it, and I was like, you know what? That's kind of how I've always felt, and I'm taking that. You need to take the truth seriously, deadly serious, but you need to not take yourself seriously. And I've tried to live that way, especially in ministry. I think it saves you. Is don't take yourself seriously, but take the truth very, very seriously. So I would actually find a lot of humor in it.
I'll have to make it.
Yeah. But there is something I think here in terms of. Related to what you're talking about with the issue of apologetics and engaging different worldviews and things, even with disagreements here or there related to like apologetic methodology, exactly how to apply this, evidentialist, presuppositional. One of the things that I've found is it's the main themes in the discussion of presuppositional apologetics that actually undergird the fight that we're doing, right? In terms of how do I know? Yeah, that's the fundamental question. Yeah. How do I know how to approach the issue of life in the womb? How do I know how to approach the issue of justice? So I think if you're taking a different perspective and you have a different methodology that sort of lends itself to all the other engagements with other worldviews, if it's different than what are the primary issues in presuppositional apologetics, you may tend to go the way that the pro-life industry will often go, like, well, I'm doing this not because I'm a Christian. I'm not going to stand on the Christian worldview. I'm just basing it off the science and the evidence that this is, in fact, from fertilization to fully human. Yeah. But the challenge, we know this, always comes to, so what?
Yeah, they end up doing these long sort of like embryological sciencing, and there's a place for evidence and there's a place for understanding that stuff. Yes. But they do these long like in the sled argument type thing, right. And you're like, at some point, it's about, are they made in the image of God?
Right.
Yeah.
And is it evil?
Right.
But and so they waste all that time whenever the person doesn't need to talk about embryological stages. They need to be confronted on the fact that they murdered their child.
Right.
And you're not even getting there.
The SLED is excellent, biologically speaking, because it describes the issue of what's going on in the womb and the difference in degree of the human being and all that stuff. And so it's one of those things where you can step into their position, say, look at your feet.
Yep.
We win this one too.
Sort of take the roof off, like Francis Schaeffer said.
In the end, though, what do we know always takes place? You can talk to that person about the science and that it is fully human. It's only the difference of degree, size, level of development, environment, degree of dependence. You could do that, and we know the truth. The issue is that their heart is sinful, and they want to kill their own child because they're selfish or prideful or whatever the case may be. And so at some point you have to say, but this is where you have to get, because the ultimate problem here is their relationship with God, their sin and their rebellion, and that's what's going on. But also, and I'll be quiet, and I know you're going to say something, it's the issue of justice. How are you supposed to properly address this in the legislature if you don't start with the foundation of God's word as your source of certain knowledge about that question? You're going to come up with different answers that are going to be evil.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they're going to be what works, what the culture thinks. And that's why we get all those poll created increments.
Right.
Yeah, because that's where James actually came in, because I was really into presuppositional apologetics, and I was telling James, because James, so you were...
Yeah, so it's a very similar story to Sam, so I'm gonna try to keep it brief. But I was in the streets in Columbus talking to a guy about abortion. We were with a group that does outreach, and he was an astronomist, and so he's talking about the expansions and contractions of the universe. And I don't know what to do with that. Like, how do I get from there to the God?
That sounds cool.
Yeah. Like I feel like
Neat.
I need
The
to
heavens
know,
declare the glory of God.
Yeah,
Check.
right.
Yeah.
But it's like I feel like I have to know everything about everything to defend the Christian faith, and I'm so discouraged by it because I didn't know how to answer this atheist. And then later in the day, I'm standing over by Sam, and he's talking to another smart atheist, but Sam's just like, he closes the guy's mouth and gets right back to the gospel.
There you go.
And the guy goes start talking, Sam closes his mouth and gets right back to the gospel. And I'm like, teach me how to do that, because we were roommates at the time. So we go home that day, and he turns on some of your videos from the recent rally and stuff. And so that's how I got into apologetics.
Yeah.
And then, so I'm drifting abolitionist. I'm still working for the pro-life group, but I'm talking to Russell, other abolitionists. I'm becoming an abolitionist. And so after Sam shows me your precept videos, I go, you know what else Jeff Durbin believes?
Because he was pro-life incrementalist still.
So
Sharing presuppositionalism. And really, abolitionism, we don't talk about it all the time because we're not trying to be too potentially schismatic, because we love our evidentialist brothers and our...
Right.
But abolitionism is a presuppositional like it's an assumed thing about abortion being evil. And so we have that approach. And so anytime there's a presup guy, we're like, abolitionism, that's your bag, man.
Yeah. Just take a look at that realm and use the same fundamental.
Exactly.
Well, it was interesting because I would listen to Frank Turek talks, and he'd be saying things like, "We're going to do all this stuff, and we're going to leave the Bible out of it." And I would see that, and I was kind of disgusted by it.
Good.
And then the pro-life stuff, the pro-life apologetics, they'd say the same thing, but I wouldn't be disgusted by it. I'd be like, "Okay, yeah, this is just what we have to do."
They must have been paying you.
That's really,
I'm just kidding.
yeah. It's very inconsistent.
Yeah, you see the inconsistencies. Yeah, praise God, we're getting out of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's good stuff. Let's talk a little bit about Arizona, right? So you guys have a bill there now.
Right.
You guys have an awesome primary author. You guys have 9 co-authors. Man, that is incredible. So just talk about what you guys have going there, how people can be keeping up with it, how people can be supporting you guys in Arizona.
So it's already a criminal act in Arizona to have an abortion. So there was questions about strategy. Do we just have a strategy that said, we weren't suggesting this, but this is what people were talking about. Do we just have a strategy that says, for the moment, let's go ahead and have the legislature just point to the law that says it's already criminal, let's uphold it. Yeah. And then we move to equal protection. We were opposed to that and essentially said, no, we need to essentially strengthen what we have in terms of it's already a criminal act, but bring equal protection, because that's the real issue.
Because the statute wasn't
not really good anyways.
some kind of felony
1
misdemeanor.
to 5 years, right?
Yeah, it was I think 2 to 5 years.
2 to 5.
And it wasn't strong in its language because it's old.
Yeah, and it's just sitting in a book somewhere.
Yeah, it's coming from a place where people understood that killing your child was a crime. But it's not firmed up. And so we put together a bill that essentially is just and righteous and says it's human from conception, of course, and that it's all humans deserve equal protection. Yeah. And that it's essentially just saying, because it's human, it deserves equal protection like all humans, and the criminal code and the penology of Arizona in terms of murdering another human will apply. It's not a question about whether it's a death penalty, whether it's this. It's just the question of definitional. It's human, equal protection, and it falls under the homicide code current.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And so that's righteous. And
5
so,
components of an abolition bill.
That's right. So it goes in with before. I mean, it was put into the whole thing where it's secret, where everyone can look at it. And they had a number of co-sponsors ahead of it even being dropped. And so when it was dropped, we did the rally, and the rally we were so grateful. So many Christians came from across the country. Abolitionists came from Oklahoma and other places just to be a support. And it was nice. It was filled up. And so we did really 2 aspects. There was a press conference release that was just legislative issues. And then we held our thing, which was essentially, this is a move of the church. So we started it with worship. It was all focused on the Word of God and the gospel itself, and we moved from there. And
people can still go watch this in its entirety, just on your YouTube.
Apologia Studios on YouTube. You can watch the whole thing. So it's HB 2650. That's the title of the bill, HB 2650, and it's Equal Protection Act of Arizona. That's all it is. And of course, the media that came wanted to focus and emphasize on the fact that you think women should have the death penalty.
Yep.
And it's really interesting.
Those articles were everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
I know. And we were looking and we're like, okay, it's the first time in Arizona. And there's this sort of thing. The first time, it's all like, you're evil and you're trying to punish women, you bloodthirsty Christians. And that's the first thing. And then like when you come back and do it again, they're like, you're trying to secede, you Southern sympathizing Christians. And so it's like, it's a weird thing. We're going to we're following the path you did, which is nice. It's helpful to know, like, well, this is what we're going to expect. This is what it looks like. So we're nice to have you leading the way and charging this, so that we were like, okay, well, this is what it's going to look like. Here's what we're going to have. So I was able to tell Walt too, hey, just so you know, Joseph Silk and Hunter and all these guys, and when that happened, this is what's going to happen to us. So I already had him ready. And that's a huge thing, because I think that some people out there that they're getting legislators on board, they don't properly prepare them.
Yeah.
Because I'll have someone say, I've got a guy and he's got a bill. And the moment he takes that bill that he thinks is so good and he goes and he talks to the right to life person, he comes back and he's like, no, man. Like, man, you did not prepare him.
Right. So when we had this ready for about a year. I met him in a restaurant in this tiny town north in Arizona, never seen each other in our lives, face to face. Within 15, 20 minutes, he said, you're absolutely right. This is murder. We're stopping it. And now I won't get into the issue of spiritual condition.
Yeah.
I'm working.
With
him. But
That's good.
I'm not under the belief that we have to wait until our entire legislature is saved before we establish justice.
Right.
So I have a close relationship with him. I admire this man. He is courageous. Sure, and I just prepared him. I said, you have to understand. And I said, this is a very sad situation. I understand it is. But when you put this in, I said, Walt, your greatest opposition is going to be the pro-life movement.
Yeah.
And I explained why.
Did he believe you?
Yeah, he believed me. Yeah. I said, prepare yourself. I said, because this is what they're going to say, and this is what they're going to do to you. And so he was ready. He was truly ready for it.
Awesome.
It wasn't a surprise to him. Of course, the major opposition to HB 2650 wasn't the pro-choicers. We didn't have any pro-choicers there trying to, there was no one there. We were like, where are the handmaids people? We want some. And
they're great for photos, man.
Local Antifa, local death escorts watch us. We know they watch us. They have special groups where they literally track where we're going, what days we're going to be there. They knew about the rally. They didn't show. They're afraid of us. They know they can't engage with us. They can't interact with us. When Viceland did the documentary on us, which I hate the name of the show, I hate that neighbor, and I told them that I don't want to do the show because I hate the name of your show. When they came, of course, Antifa was there, death escorts were there. I just walked right up to them with Vice, with the cameras on and our cameras on. I said, let's engage with this sign right here. So they hate that. We'll walk up to them and say, let me take your worldview.
They're like, we're going to stop coming to these things because you destroy us on camera.
Yeah, they don't want it because their face is there. I'm going to put it up. I'm going to humiliate your perspective before the world. We're going to show how foolish it is.
The state troopers said that we were going to have Antifa and whatever, all sorts of stuff. And they're going to get us into acts of violence and everything. And I'm looking around. I'm like, I guess they don't care about their cause as much as we care about ours.
They don't have enough. There's no endurance. There's no endurance.
Yeah.
Like we've had people before, a guy named Errol, who is also in Viceland, that episode, like he's an atheist, he's homosexual, and he hates what we're doing, but I've just loved him. I've brought him things, and like I try to love the guy, take care of him, give him the gospel. And I always said to people, they're like, this guy is making things hard for us. I'm like, guys, it's just going to take a little time. There's no endurance in his worldview. There's no reason to continue this, and he disappeared. That's what happens every time. Yep. So so we're at the rally, and of course the opposition that's coming is from the pro-life leaders in our state, basically saying the woman's a victim, the pro-life movement has always seen the woman as a victim, and we can't support any bill that has punishment. Channel 12 News was there. Other places where they're doing stuff too, but Channel 12 sent their like local rabid liberal journalist. Yeah. And he was talking to Walt and other guys, and they were like, Jeff, you're going to go talk to that guy. Like he's really hard to deal with. And so I was like, sure. So I go up, and I know this guy. I know what he's going to try to do. And of course he tries to emphasize, he's like, you just want women to get the death penalty, right? Yeah. And so I said,
do you guys have a death penalty in Arizona?
There is one. Yeah, there is one in Arizona. So all I said to him is, this is my common answer to this question. This bill, that's a separate question. That's an issue in terms of what's proper justice for murder, but that's not what this bill is about. It's just saying equal protection, definitional, and it's saying homicide code, current. I said, so that's a separate question. It's not really related right now to what's happening with this bill in terms of what it's trying to define. I said, but personally, do I believe, and this is where you're going to take somebody's legs off. They try to use an emotional argument against you, but they're borrowing from your worldview, take it away from them. So what I say is, but if you're asking me about the man who crawled into the 7-year-old girl's window while she was sleeping, kidnapped her, raped her, chopped her into pieces and threw her away, do I think that guy should get the death penalty for such an act? Yeah.
Yeah. I like to always say, like, well, as someone believes in human rights, and I know that you don't, and then they're like, wait, no, we do. Yeah. It's like, no, you don't. You don't believe anything like this. Right. And you're trying to use this. I mean, I think innately they do have a sense of justice.
Yeah, they know.
Because when you tell that story back to them, they're thinking, oh, all those posts against the death penalty look pretty silly right now.
Right, yeah. So I said to him, do I believe that's in terms of what God says is just, if a person is truly guilty, that's what they deserve in a just system in society? My answer is absolutely I do. Yeah. For the woman who took her twin kids and drowned them in the river, 6 years old, I think that she deserves a death penalty. Yeah. And I said, but do I trust our judicial system today to hand out the death penalty wholesale?
It's pretty hard.
I don't.
They're hypocritical.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't believe that we can wholesale say, sure, just distribute the death penalty in today's judicial system because we've abandoned biblical standards of evidence. You can have somebody that gets a death penalty based upon one spurious line of evidence. Yeah. So do I trust it? No. And he goes, okay, but what you're saying is you want the women to get the death penalty.
Yeah. So because all they're doing is they know that
they want the clip.
They want the clip, and they know. And the thing is they know that like 1 in 4 women out there have done this.
Right.
And so they know that that's going to make you look like a monster.
Right.
That's all it's about.
And so he says it to me again. So you believe you want women to have the death penalty. I said, well, let me answer you again. So I went through it again. And then he goes, why? He goes, well, why won't you just say it? So I said, well, let me explain it to you again. So I gave him the full context. So he goes,
the only clip you're going to get is this.
Can you just say that you want women to get the death penalty if they do this? And I said, no, sir. I said, I'm not playing into your hands so you can get a clip of me saying something that I don't actually believe in the way that you're going to express. Ooh. I said, I gave you context. I said, so let me do it with you. I said, I'm going to ask you a question. And his assistant behind him starts like walking over. He's like smiling. I said, I'm going to ask you a question. He's like, no, I'm doing an interview. I said, no, I'm going to ask you a question. I said, do you believe that the man who goes into the girl's window, I just watched an interrogation of a man that did this. He went into a girl's window, kidnapped her, raped her, mutilated her, threw her away. I said, do you believe he deserves the death penalty? He said, well, I'd have to see the evidence. I said, no, he confesses to it. There's video camera footage, whatever. The person is truly guilty. Should he die? And he goes, well, that's based on the court needs to make that decision. I said, that's what we're saying.
Boom, blap. And hopefully you got people with cameras filming.
Oh, he was filming.
Oh, man.
He was filming he didn't put it up.
You're going to have to crawl through his window and find that footage.
Exactly.
Well, it's interesting, too, that he's the only one there actually advocating explicitly for the death penalty for the preborn. Innocent preborn.
And that's the next step is that
justice is flipped.
You do believe capital punishment, sir. You just think the kids should get it.
Yeah. No, but that's all. And I think for people who are watching, like these guys are saying, that sort of ability to like put someone in that position and turn it back around on them and get them to see the inconsistency in their worldview and their claims and their justice is the sort of thing that I think on your programs, because you guys do the abortion thing because you're being Christian, but you also do all this other just general apologetics. So if you thought, oh, that was really good, that's where you go. You go to the channel.
And then read Presuppositional Apologetics by Bonson, Always Ready by Bonson.
Yeah, there's size stuff and just getting into that frame of mind instead of letting them play you. Yeah. It's like they're on your worldview, and they're suppressing the truth and unrighteousness. You got to take them down that.
He's not even supposed to be allowed to have that emotional appeal. He's not a Christian.
Yeah.
He can't make an emotional appeal to life mattering at all. Like you want women to die. Does it matter that women die? Is that a problem in your worldview? You're a secularist. What are you doing borrowing my emotions?
Yeah, it's just matter bumping into matter, bro.
Exactly. Why?
Yeah, and you're a reporter, by the way.
Exactly.
You're supposed to be just reporting on what I actually believe. You're trying to get me to say something.
Journalism is not the same any longer.
Yeah. So that's the way the media dealt with you.
I think we should go into Kathy Herod next. So talk about. You mentioned it briefly. Let's talk more in depth about the opposition that you're receiving, the reasons they're giving. Yeah. If they're willing to discuss, you think if they're willing maybe to change their mind through conversation.
Yeah, there's a great opportunity. That's a good question because there's a great opportunity in the state of Arizona with a lot of pro-life people who identify as pro-life to easily win them to abolition because they already have those assumptions. Many of them are just ignorant about what the pro-life industry is doing, what they believe. Oh, yeah. So we've found that we can win most of these believers who just go, oh, they're not trying to end it. Oh, they actually say that. Oh, I'm not doing that anymore. It's easy. And some of the pro-life leaders in Arizona, thank God, over the last couple of years, have been watching Apologia stuff, and they're grateful for our ministry. So even after the bill was put in and Kathy Herod tried to oppose, there were pro-life leaders in Arizona that were like, we want to talk to Jeff because we actually agree with him, but we're confused.
Are these like lower leaders or?
I don't want to put them on blast right now, but I'll just say largest organizations in Arizona.
Yep.
So pro-life leaders respect us. They want to support and help. So they were just confused because they were trying to balance like, we agree with what you're saying because we're Christians, but we're in an industry that's telling us this. So we come into this room and they were just asking like, well, how are we supposed to see this? This doesn't make sense. Can we just do something different? So I would just sort of just make them think through it. I was like, well, what do you believe is in the womb? Is it fully human? Yes. So do you want equal protection for them? Yes. What would it look like to have equal protection for that child? So I'm just making them think through it. And they went from a place where they were kind of challenging to going, yeah, you're right.
We saw that with a legislator the other day. Yeah. They literally, a lot of these people have not, 48 years of like that pro-life indoctrination.
Yeah.
And then they've got all their talking points. Like, it's just kind of like, why do you think that criminalizing abortion and treating it like murder, even for the mother, is so important? They don't know. They just say, this is the position of the pro-life movement.
Right.
And a lot of really basic things, too. Like, we'll talk to some legislator. Yesterday, I was having a conversation with one, and he's like, well, what if we had a moral means of reducing the abortion numbers, like 75% or something? Would you be behind that? I was like, well, what are you talking about? Like, what do you have in mind? He's like, well, we could get birth control into all the schools. And if we got birth control into the schools,
pro-life Republican.
Yeah, let's put birth control in the water.
Put some abortifacients in there and see how that works for us.
Yeah.
I was like, those are abortifacient, right? And he's like, oh, I didn't really know that. Yeah. So
there you go. Yeah, a lot of people, I think, come to this maybe from even a nominal Christian background or perspective, and they come into this and they're like, I'm going to be a legislator now. I'm getting into politics. And so what's the position? I've got to be conservative. I've got to be the Second Amendment. I've got to be pro-life. But that commitment to being pro-life isn't thoughtful. Like I know really why.
It's check the box, get the vote.
Exactly. And so Kathy Herod is, she in Arizona, the New Times is a big publication in the state of Arizona. The New Times had her on the cover, full blown out. It's Kathy Herod, and it was actually really well done art. And it's Kathy Herod as Dr. Evil. And she's famous. The left hates her because they think she represents the Christian right lobbyists.
Like, we got an opportunity here to set them all against each other.
They hate her. And so she's famous. She is. There's literally. I'm not saying anything that's secret. This isn't gossip. This is the theme in Arizona in terms of even the left and the right. They see Kathy Herod as she has Doug Ducey in her pocket. Doug Ducey's our governor. he does whatever she says, sort of a thing. That's what everyone argues about her.
Well, the politicians know that people like that have big mailing list, and if like she's our Tony Lounger.
Yeah.
Hey, I've got Tony Lounger's approval, therefore I'm going to win.
Yep.
But the thing is that can be surmounted, and that's what you're doing.
Oh,
you're changing that.
I told her, I said, you have my commitment before God as a pastor. Like, I'm going to make sure everyone in the state knows about you and your inconsistencies. I'll make sure every church knows.
Yep.
And I mean it. It's my life's mission to make sure that we take her out of influence, because she doesn't represent the Christian position. She is not truly pro-life, for life. She's inconsistent.
Yeah.
And it's my life mission right now to make sure I expose her as inconsistent and to speak against her, because she is a primary... she's one of the biggest reasons at the moment that abortion is still legal in the state of Arizona.
And she runs $1 million organization.
Because she is the kind of person that the legislators, again, who just, some of them don't even understand the Constitution, how it's supposed to work, truly. Yeah. I had more, I mean, you've probably experienced this.
Haven't read it.
Yeah, I've literally been sitting in front of legislators this whole last year, mayors, sheriffs, congressmen, House, Senate, all of them. I can't tell you how many times I've had a conversation with somebody who's in that position in my state, and I start explaining how the law works, and they're like, oh, wait, yeah, I'd never thought about that. That Congress is the one that makes laws, not the Supreme Court.
It's like our culture is under an extreme state of delusion.
Right. Yeah, I think what people need to understand about that too is when like a pro-lifer hears that kind of thing, that your mission right now is to make sure people know what Kathy Herod is doing.
Right.
Their policy in the pro-life movement is to not publicly criticize other pro-life leaders.
So they always see it as really mean.
Yeah, they see it as mean. They see it as counterproductive. They see it as just opportunity for the pro-choice movement to criticize us or something like that.
They say focus on the real enemy, Planned Parenthood.
Yeah, we're all in the same team. It's like, we're not on the same team.
And here's the thing. I don't like it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like having to go against someone like this and to create possibly enemies for myself when I'm trying to win these people to the truth to save these children. Like, this isn't self-aggrandizing. It's something we're supposed to be committed to. I hope it blesses somebody. Paul's issue in Galatians 1, when he talks about confronting their false gospel, is he says, am I seeking to please men or God? If I was still seeking to please men, I would not be the slave of Jesus. That's my commitment in a moment like this.
And you absolutely have to do it. Like if just from a strategic point of view, it needs to be that when somebody gets a mailer for the candidate in their area and they see Kathy's name on there, they go, I'm not voting for them because I know she doesn't believe in justice.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the Christian doesn't vote for that candidate and gets the mailer for Blackman or whoever's running or whatever and says, I know this is the guy that has the abolitionist, and I saw this guy on Durbin's program. He gets my vote.
Right.
Yeah.
We're never going to change things politically.
Yeah. And sorry, we have Red State Reform is a lobby group with a lot of people that I know.
Yes.
That their goal is to make sure that Arizonans know, and other states across the country, whatever they're involved with, this person doesn't really believe what they say they do.
Yeah.
We're going to take them out of the process.
Yeah,
So
we'll put their
that's
URL right here.
Yeah.
I got that. All right. No, yeah. So what I was going to say is that with Russell criticizing the organization that I worked for, at first I was mad at him. Like, I was like, stop saying that. We're doing all kinds of good stuff. Be quiet. But that kind of thing, it can even affect Kathy Herod to the point where she might stop. Like, if someone's not publicly making this shameful thing a shameful thing, it allows a lot of people to believe something that's evil, and no one ever comes into conflict with that idea that it's wrong, and so they continue to do it. And that's why we have 48 years now of legalized abortion, because the pro-life movement errs and no one actually straightens each other out because they know they're doing bad.
We have to confront it. We have to confront sin in ourselves and inconsistencies in ourselves. We can't stop that when we come to this issue of abortion, where it's actually it's leading to the death of children. And, and of course the argument where people say that, well, lives have been saved.
Yeah.
Well, God strikes straight blows with crooked sticks, but it doesn't mean you should look for crooked sticks to hit people with in a war.
And when you're talking, that behind the scenes, she's going around and working to make sure, like, she's probably working against some of the co-authors. I'm just speculating, but that's how they're working against the co-author, trying to get them off the bill. Do you know what this is? You're going to look. This is behind the scenes working unfruitful deeds of darkness. When you know that they're doing them, it's a biblical command to expose them.
I have to
bring them into the light. Yeah. It's not meanness. It's not tribal. You're not trying to outcompete her organization, whatever it's called. It's bringing her bad stuff. And it's not just like, oh, she's bad. It's the bad thing she's doing. Kill babies.
That's right. And people are dying because of her.
Yes.
That's what she's doing. Yeah, this is not a minor disagreement amongst Christians over whether you should sprinkle or whether you should pour, whether you should dunk.
By the way, what?
Or, it's not even, were you an optimistic amillennialist or you're a pessimistic amillennialist? Like, those are the things, like, let's just love each other and talk about that, like, forever until we go home to be with Jesus. I mean, honestly, there are essential issues. This is an essential issue. It's talking about life, murder. And when Kathy Herod opposes the bill to provide equal protection to humans in Arizona while she's taking money for being, quote, pro-life, she needs to be exposed for the wickedness that she's propagating. Because, and I think the thing for me that most dramatically impacted me in the last week about the issue was that I know her inconsistencies. I know it's leading to what it's leading to. But the fact that she tries to save face for opposing equal protection by saying, well, here's what we're going to do. And it's on our website. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to not let them kill babies with Down syndrome. We're going to make sure that they provide these babies a proper burial. And I'm working to have legislators to erase the current legislation, never changed in Arizona, that makes abortion a crime for the woman. It's like, you are a wicked person.
And that stuff is mock-worthy.
Yeah.
Like, they think that we're being mean, but we're like, when we literally say, if you're going to go kill your Down syndrome baby, go in and say, I realize the baby's got Down syndrome, but I'm killing them because I don't want them.
Right.
Not because they have Down syndrome. Mm-hmm. The law won't protect that baby.
That's right.
Or your baby doesn't have Down syndrome. I'm killing my baby because they don't have Down syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Mock that stuff. Mm-hmm. You're not attacking that person necessarily. You're attacking the proposition. The problem is the proposition comes from the person, and they got pride.
And that's a fantastic point.
Right.
You just made about the issue of the Down syndrome. All she has to do is say, I'm not killing because of Down syndrome. I'd love to have Down syndrome baby, but right now, I don't want this one.
Yeah.
Like, you get around the law, it's foolish. Also, like, you have to make sure the mom gets a chance to view the baby or to hear a heartbeat. Do you really think that assassins who are being paid to kill children for a living are going to find a heartbeat for you and that they're going to give you a really good image of the ultrasound? This is all just this. It is this industry of death.
Yeah, you've got a mother and father that don't want a child, or there's an illegitimate child or whatever, and the abortionist is supposed to, because the state's told him to offer her the opportunity to look at an ultrasound.
Right.
One, she doesn't want to look at an ultrasound. Right. Two, no one's watching. Why does he have to offer it? And three, we all know that even the Israelites were putting babies on fiery altars, looking at the baby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's not an issue of does it have fingers and toes?
Right.
Yeah.
It's a malicious murder. I keep.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah. The legal side of this, of how bad these bills are. So in 1992, in KCV Planned Parenthood, the court ruled that anything that's an undue burden on the right to an abortion is not going to be upheld by the courts. And so what that means is that any bill that is upheld under current court precedents, it doesn't do anything, right? Because if it does do something, if it gets in the way of an abortion, then it's an undue burden. And if it gets upheld, that means it's not an undue burden and doesn't do anything.
Yeah, the Supreme Court.
And so all of these Down syndrome bans or sex selection bans, or you have to hear the heartbeat. They can only be upheld if the court says, this isn't going to do anything.
Yeah,
and so we can uphold it.
Well, our attorney general once, whenever he was defending a bill, he literally wrote in the article, and I can't quote it because I don't have it memorized, but he said this is not going to cause an undue burden. This is why.
It was the Texas Attorney General. That was SB 8 in Texas, and it's incredible, the transcript. I think this is in one of Bradley Pierce's talks. I think Callie has it in his book as well, The Doctrine of Balaam. But yeah, the Texas Attorney General is arguing for the dismemberment ban in court, and he says this is not a bill that will prevent one abortion from occurring. This is a bill simply that reflects the ethos of a humane society that treats the remains of human beings respectfully.
But the reason you can uphold it, I mean, the Supreme Court really is looking at the bill and saying we can only uphold the bill if it doesn't prohibit abortion in any way.
Yeah.
And that's what they're using. And the really sick thing is the pro-life lobbyists who write these bills and give them to the legislators know that.
Yeah.
And so they craft their language to meet that requirement.
Yeah.
Because it's all about passing it, tweeting it, fundraising off of it.
Yeah. And
so let's get back to we should get back to Arizona. Kathy.
Yeah, I want to make one point on that. I was actually talking to Blake Gideon yesterday, and one of the things he said was, what I really appreciate about you, James, is that you're kind of the one who kind of, when things get harsh, you kind of provide a bit of a softer word to try to persuade him. So I'm gonna play that role.
Okay.
Play that role real quick. Like to Kathy Herod or anyone who knows
this out.
or to anyone who knows Kathy Herod, right? We are very angry, and we are very righteously angry, right? Like you and the Center for Arizona Policy, you're doing something very, very evil, right? And so we're going to call you out for that, but we don't want to call you out for that. We want you to be with us,
right?
And for those like Gideon, the guy,
and to join us, and we will celebrate you,
call you a hero, you know. And I want to say, when someone says, to that point, boy, you're being really heavy-handed. You called her wicked because what she's doing is wicked. You know, you call what she's doing in terms of justifying the wicked an abomination. That's from the Proverbs. That's what she's doing.
Yeah.
I'm using strong language. I know.
As you should.
Paul told people who were preaching a false gospel that he hoped they burned in hell forever. Eternal condemnation, anathema, is a very strong word. So
they call Paul mean too.
Yeah, exactly. You know, Jesus seemed like a big meanie in Matthew 23. But the point is when you have someone's spiritual life in danger or their physical life in danger, Scripture is always reserving the serrated edge for those moments. Yeah. So this is a moment for a serrated edge. But if somebody says, well, Jeff, will you just try to talk to Kathy Herod? My answer to that is, I have.
Yeah.
I know her. She's been on my radio show years ago before I knew that she wasn't committed.
And she appreciates your other things.
There was a point where something had happened. I forget what she had done, but her building was like overrun by leftists. This is like probably 8 years ago. They were there like, they're like, we're going to kill you. And so like I moved through I drove to her office. I went through the crowd. I cut through the crowd. I went up to find her. She wasn't on her floor. She was on a different floor, hiding like behind a desk, sort of a thing. And
kind of an AOC thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Except for real.
Except this is for real.
For real, though.
Go there.
She was actually in the building?
I was there with her to encourage her, to pray with her. I think I've shown my commitment to loving her, but the problem is, when you become an enemy of the truth, and you actually halt justice for preborn children to the thousands who are going to be slaughtered, you have now become an enemy of the gospel, and you've become an enemy of the truth. Yeah. And so in that degree, it's the same kind of heavy hand I use for someone like, say, Charles Taze Russell. Charles Taze Russell's a false prophet. He led people after a false god. He should be condemned. What do you want? I can keep going in terms of talking about all the evil of Charles Taze Russell. Yeah. I'm required to do that because of the consequences. Yeah. Now, just because Kathy Herod's not a dead false prophet, she's alive, doesn't mean I have to hold back on the strong denunciation.
And she's leading people astray, and the strong denunciation might be what they need.
Right. People need to hear, guys, do you want these babies to be protected? Yes. Kathy Herod's the enemy.
And there might be an overlap in your audiences there in Arizona.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Kathy Herod, I know she's a professing believer. I don't know the condition of her heart. I hope that's true. But right now she's acting contrary to Scripture, and she's acting contrary to what is ultimately just. Mm-hmm. And so she has become an enemy in this fight. It's the same situation with Tony Lounger, of course, in the state of Oklahoma. The man who kills, he asked by legislators, how should we vote? Don't do it. Mm-hmm. He's an enemy.
Yeah. And I think sort of the theme here is just impartiality, because you have people in the pro-life movement who are good friends. They've been friends for a very long time, and they don't want, they see the problems with other pro-lifers, like when Students for Life pushes the women betrayed stuff. You'll have people like Mark Harrington and Troy Newman looking at that stuff and going, this is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But they won't say that publicly. They'll only say that behind closed doors.
Because of the personal relationship.
Relationships, they want to maintain that. And they're being very partial towards these people. When I see Tony Lounger, I kind of just think, that guy's a sweet old man. Like, he looks like...
He is sweet.
Yeah, he's just like this, he doesn't seem like very abrasive or anything. He just seems like a very sweet old man. And, you kind of just want to be very... nice to him. Like, you don't want to say anything that's mean, but then he's doing this stuff that is the main opposition towards abolition in Oklahoma.
You have no choice.
Yeah. He's like single-handedly killing our bills.
The crazy
you have
thing,
to be impartial about these things. You have to say it doesn't matter what your condition is, who you are, whether you're a friend of mine, which is the case with Kathy Herod, but you need to be corrected because what you're doing is evil.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because in terms of how we generally think as believers in particular realms, like we're like, wait, you're doing something that's going to create conflict and difficulty within this call for justice in the area of the preborn. Mm-hmm. Don't do that. Don't have those. Don't try to offer corrections. Don't do those challenges like that. But we don't act that way within the church. Like, I mean, I have men around me who like say, hey, I need to talk to you. Like, come in a room with me real fast. Why'd you say this? Why are you doing this? Are you sure that was the right thing to do? And like, in the last year, I've had two examples of times where brothers, my fellow elders, were like, hey, I want to talk to you for a second. Yeah. Why'd you say that? Like, can you explain to me like your biblical reasoning behind? Okay, I understand.
That happens to me about 6 times a day.
I know. How can we accept that form of reasoning? In terms of like our personal lives, our understanding as believers, how this is supposed to work, sanctification is supposed to work, and accountability is supposed to work, consistency is supposed to work, but we're not expecting it over here in this realm where like they're killing children. Yeah. Why aren't we fighting for the same consistency and the necessary?
And they can do it for years and years and years, and you'll be like, this person's been propagating this really weak sauce, anti-abolition, pro-life view for 5 years, right? And then they're like, well, he's a baby Christian. Like, how long?
They shouldn't be in leadership.
Are you allowed to be the leader of the free world and a baby Christian who won't seek justice?
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I think it was brought up last night. I think Bradley brought it up last night. By the way, both Bradley, your talks just absolutely brilliant. I mean that seriously.
As was yours.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you.
And Brett's that
my
followed.
dad was super tired, but he's like, I'm not gonna go before I see Jeff Durbin talk.
I felt bad.
Next time we have you down, we'll make you speak first. I was always like, man, I'll put Jeff at the end. That'll make everyone watch everything up to then, and then it's like, and then everyone goes long. And anyway, you go first next time, brother.
Yeah, that'll work. Yeah. So, but I think it was Bradley that said that, and I appreciated it years ago when Donald Trump was. I'm pro-life, and he was put on the spot in that interview. The interview where he, so they talk. Well, you're calling it murder. Well, there had to be some kind of punishment for the women because he's just consistently going.
Yeah.
It makes sense, right? If it's murder, he was just trying to I think flesh out what he was understanding is really going on in this position. It's human life. It's murder. Of course, there has to be some form of punishment. And then the pro-life movement's like, no, and he has to get checked. Yeah. No. That's not our position.
It's the only, Donald Trump, who's kind of known as this guy who can't be moved, within like a day.
Oh, flipped.
It's like Abby Johnson and Al Mohler and everyone in between said, that's not our position. He's like, well, that's not my position.
And it's interesting what they're willing to criticize him on too, because the rest of the time they're kissing up to him. But on this, like something that's righteous and good.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Donald Trump, that's not what we believe. Like, back that up a bit.
Yeah, that's interesting.
When he says abortion's okay in the case of rape, no, I didn't see anyone saying no. That's not the pro-life position. That's not our position.
Oh yeah, even people who
use the most pro-life president
name abolitionist.
Yeah. That's right.
But I think just to get back to one thing, because I think we started offering the gospel a bit to Kathy, Tony, any one of these people, and I've been kind of burdened. It's some of it's a burden, some of it's strategic thinking. Like we need these people to come to our side.
Yeah.
And so the issue, like in Oklahoma, I think it's almost this bad in Arizona, but not as bad. But in Oklahoma, it literally is. The pro-choice liberals have no power. They're not the problem. I don't think they're a problem. And then we had Tony Lounger sitting in the committee that was supposed to hear the abolition bill, and he was sitting in there to make sure the pro-life bills were heard and not the abolition bill, and he's sitting right next to the Planned Parenthood people. And I'm thinking,
I saw that picture.
How odd is it that whenever it comes down to it, the leftists don't need to break into Kathy's building and lynch her or whatever.
Right.
They need to thank her for the good work she's doing to keep abortion legal by killing y'all's bill.
Here's a very interesting point with that. So I saw that tweet. I think it got posted in some abolition Facebook groups, and I saw it very quickly, her tweet. And so I went to Twitter and I looked at it. And I looked at the responses. She did not win a single bit of favor with any of these pro-choice liberals. They were all still, but even though she's saying no, is not our position that we think there should be any prosecution of the mother. She's still just getting bashed by those on the left. It doesn't win you any favor.
Yeah, because she's trying to appeal to the culture of death.
That's why you compromise. You try to win some favor from the middle, some favor from the other side. You're not winning any favor by doing this.
They were calling out her inconsistency. Yeah. They were like, you should believe this.
Yeah.
Sort of a thing.
We're like, we've always opposed you because we think you believe this. And some of them are probably thinking, you do believe this, but you're conservative Republicans and you guys just practice cunning. Mm-hmm. So, because they do. They're like, abortion hurts women. Mm-hmm. This is a bill to protect women from abortion doctors. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then, but all the people on the left are like, whatever, you're really trying to control our vaginas. you know, and so they think you're being clever. But on this one, sadly, I don't think they're being clever. They don't believe in justice. They are with the world on this.
Yeah,
they've got a worldview.
You got a great point in terms of clever. One of the things that happened, we didn't plan this. We had nothing in our minds in terms of any kind of scope. I was asked to go to Ireland years ago to speak as the keynote speaker for the Covenanter denomination, Presbyterians, old school, legit, hardcore.
Yeah.
I love them.
These are don't get mixed up. These are the good kind of Presbyterians.
These are hardcore. I love them. Their history is incredible. This is these are the descendants. This is their denomination. There's like 40 different churches in Northern and Southern Ireland. There's some in Scotland. So they call me and they say, hey, will you be the keynote speaker for our family conference we do once a year? I was like, you know I'm a Reformed Baptist.
I'm a Baptist. Does that bother you?
They were like, we know. I was like, absolutely. This is awesome. I love that unity. I thought it was one of the special things ever. When they asked me to come out, it was for like apologetics and things like that. And so they had me it was like 2 weeks. It was like I was like speaking at the conference and I was doing like this thing of all the churches and their seminary. It was truly a very humbling experience because these people are giants. They're way stronger believers than I think I'll ever be. I mean that seriously. They're just legit. But it keeps happening while I'm there is I keep getting from place to place and the issue of abortion comes up. Now, at the time, it was considered murder and a crime in the North and the South at the time.
Yep.
Now, it keeps coming up and coming up and coming up. And I'm thinking to myself, what's this all about? Because they were like, we might actually legalize it. We might actually legalize it. And they were worried. So I was like, well, how can we help you? So we started pouring into the Irish church in the North and the South saying, here's what you need to prepare for. And we realized we had to knock down their understanding of the pro-life movement coming from our side.
Yeah.
And we were like, don't listen to that. Don't believe that. And they were like, okay. So then they have to go through this transformation. And praise God we got there early because now you have solid Christians there who are abolitionists.
Oh, yeah.
Now.
Yeah. Don't we have someone who's regularly translating or not translating to speak, but like
CBR Northern Ireland.
Oh, hey, abolitionist.
It's like just putting a little bit of Lucky Charms into it. But
they didn't understand it before. It's just gotta.
Sorry, that was so racist. I don't
was not
nationalist, but no, we get messages from there, and it's crazy. We're like, wait, CBR, you guys are
Greg Cunningham,
anti-immediatist people. And it's like, no, we're not.
Yeah,
we're abolitionists.
They have like abolitionist up on there. You know,
you're gonna be so encouraged by this, truly. So we go and cunning and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So the pro-life industry, of course, knows that abortion is about to be legalized in the South and possibly the North at the time. Yeah. And so what they do, they just start pouring in there. We'll help you. We'll help you. So we go there, and now, mind you, the Irish Christians call it murder. It's a crime. It's called murder. It has been that way for forever. They've been holding back. But the culture sees it as murder. This is a mother killing her child. We don't accept it. Now, of course, there's stuff growing and evil opposition to that.
Yeah, people probably doing it behind.
But culturally speaking, that's how the Irish people see it. It's a crime, and you'll be punished for it. Now, the pro-life industry gets into the South, the Republic, before they have their vote on the 8th, okay? Now, we come in at the same time, like I think 2 trips later after we're trying to help the church prepare them for this. So we come into where the pro-life industry has set up a march in the Republic. And what do we see? Signs that are coordinate with Irish beliefs already, that it's a crime and it's murder?
Yeah.
No. Their signs were abortion kills love. It was all this pithy, cunning.
It's like, get this American evangelifish crap out of here.
Hurts the mother and the baby. It was all that nonsense.
Yep.
And so we had to now go, oh my goodness, the pro-life industry is going to come and they're going to destroy any possibility. So.
Oh yeah. Well, it's sad, and I hate to go to I don't know the motives here, but it's a broadening of their field.
Yeah.
You know, they got that. They're like, this is an opportunity. If they legalize it here, we can fight it there.
So you, like I said, you'll be encouraged by this. So the South is not encouraging. The South, the Republic legalizes it by vote. The North is holding back. It was forced upon the North because of the situation with Brexit. it eventually got to the point where they basically just literally thrust it on them that you don't have a functional government that you should be having, so we're going to thrust it on you in the North. So right now it is legal in the North and the South to have an abortion. But here's the encouraging news. Because God put us there, again, unsuspectingly, we didn't know that this was going to be a thing, and allowed us to get to the right Christians and the right churches, we were able to get with this awesome denomination and other believers who were there to say, don't listen to the pro-life industry. Here's what they believe. And so you have all these Irish Christians that are literally listening to us and going, it is about the gospel. It is murder. We have to stop this. So we had a phone call last week, a Zoom call with Luke thought there was going to be like one of the pastors and then 2 other Christians who were like leading the abolitionists there. Yeah. The Zoom call turns on and it's over 65 abolitionists in Ireland who wanted to get on to say, strategize and talk. Oh yeah. 65 on this. Luke's like, hey, you could have warned me. I wasn't even there. He's like, I wasn't even prepared for this phone call.
Don't stand up. I'm in boxers.
Yeah. But check this out. Check this out. So the leaders in the pro-life industry find out that there's this group of Christians in Ireland, the North and the South and in Scotland, who are saying it's murder and it needs to be criminalized again. And so what they do is they send their big hitters. I won't use their names right now. Let me just say right now, you know them. Yeah. They send their big hitters to the churches that we are working with to try to convince them against abolitionism.
So shameful.
And so we spent about 2 weeks where they would have their heavy hitter contact these people to say, here's why they're wrong, you need to do it this way. We would then have a phone call with them and say, here's what the scriptures teach.
And it works so beautiful because they think, now if you're dealing with people who really do believe the word of God, and whenever the pro-lifers do something schemy, like write a letter and say certain things or like make a program or come in there and do stuff, it just backfires.
Right.
Just like,
the problem is
everything that Jeff told us that they were going to say that was so, we were like, nah, they're not evil like that. They came in and they said it as though it was good.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because the challenge with what they attempted to do with these abolitionists and these believers in Northern and Southern Ireland, the problem is these are covenanters.
These people have a biblical worldview.
Do you know their story? Do you know what happened in Scotland and them signing in their own blood? Do you understand?
They're not going to go with you because the sign said abortion kills love and had a pretty baby on it.
Yeah, these people died freezing cold, eating like 4 ounces of bread a week or something naked because they wouldn't simply say that the king has authority over the church. I don't think you're going to convince them that we need to use neutral argumentation. You know what I mean? It's like you got the wrong crowd, friends. But thankfully, the group that's in Northern and Southern Ireland right now, a success story. Again, I think this will bless you guys. So, by God's grace, I mean, they were in tears when we were challenging them the first time. Literally, they were in repentance and broken. And they said, we have to do, you're right, we have to do this. So when they first went out, when it's now allowed to be done, they don't have abortion facilities. It has to be done at the hospital in Ireland. Now, they go out there as a church, and I have this video. They're literally outside this hospital, and they're preaching the gospel. They're just preaching the gospel. They're calling it murder. They shut that hospital down that day because the doctors and nurses, because of the preaching, they wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I'm not going in here. They're killing babies on the same wing that I'm delivering babies.
They wouldn't do it. And they were out there not praying rosaries, walking around the building. They were not out there staying silent with a sticker over their mouth. They were out there preaching Christ and repentance. And it shut down the work they were trying to do there because these Irish people come from a context and culture where they already saw this as murder. They already saw it as punishable. And the pro-life industry is trying to move into that nation to tell them, don't call it a crime. Don't say it should be punished. You're already talking to people that have already believed that.
Yeah, it's not going to match.
Right.
They're trying to export a really unbiblical worldview.
Yeah,
it doesn't fit.
Failing unbiblical worldview.
Hey, this has failed in America for 48 years.
We've got 48 years of legalized abortion. Yeah, here's how you mimic us.
Do what we've done.
Yeah, we'll help you with this.
We'll tell you how to take 1 yard every four plays.
Right.
Because we're just trying to get the ball down the field 1 yard.
I'm a martial artist, and I have to say, I can't imagine in trying to be trained for a fight or warfare going to the guy that has had a record of total failure for like decades of his life. He's never won a fight really, and he's totally doesn't know what he's doing.
Train me, master.
I would be like, I'm going to go look for the guy that's the winner and is the person that can.
Well, he knows what it's like to get beat, so he can explain it.
Yeah, he can explain it really well.
I got hit from here.
No, he's like,
here.
listen, we've been running this industry for 48 years. I've got a 401k.
Right.
I've got a collection of hot rods. I mean, they can tell people that. They got the temptation.
Well, it's one of those things. I think this needs to be grappled with. I don't know. We can't talk about the hearts and the motives of people.
Sure.
Only God knows that.
Problem is there's so much that they're doing.
That's
that
the point. The fruit I can talk about and say, where's that coming from? Yeah. However, I've said this a million times, and I'm going to keep saying it. I'm in this. This is a move of the church to do what? To never collect a dollar again. I want to get to the point where we never ask for another penny. I don't want funding. I don't want to ask for money from Christians. I want this to be over. And I want us to move on to what's the next injustice.
Yeah, because there is a need. There is a financial need to do all the things that you guys do, the things that we do. It does cost money. Yeah. Even just to if you got 300 people who need to sit in a room, you got to pay for that room usually.
Pay for the room.
All the stuff, materials.
Coming out here to support you, that costs money.
Yeah, flying around and all this kind of stuff. And so I think what happens is you start to do that. You start to see that people are trying to use, not to be too negative, but kind of farm out their practice of pure and undefiled religion, make a donation, feel like they're doing something. And there's something that happens where all of a sudden you're like, wow, this is a paycheck. This is my job. I can do this. It would be very difficult if we abolished abortion because this is what I fight. And so, one of the things I'm always saying is like never-ending stream of incremental victories because each of those incremental victories get to be celebrated, funded, come back for more. But I think you guys, there's a million different evils to deal with.
Right.
And there's just general evangelism, general apologetics, general biblical teaching, training, helping people, deal with sin, kill sin. All that is what probably we want to do more. There's nothing enjoyable about saying, hey, we're trying to do this thing. We need to raise a certain amount of money because we need to expose like this politician, blah, 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 because babies are being killed. You don't want to ask for money for that.
No, I hate it.
And the moment that's over, it's not like we're going to be like, well, I guess I've got to, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
But I think that sometimes if you've been fighting abortion and that's been your paycheck, I would hate it if you're, and I'm just imagining, but like you're sitting there, you're a pro-lifer and you're looking at some state, they've got an abolition bill, they've got a lot of people backing it. And in your depraved humanity, you're thinking, but if that starts to happen, what will I do?
Yeah, whole industry goes away.
Yeah.
And that is a person who needs to go, woe is me, where am I?
Yeah.
What is my heart?
The beautiful thing about this coming from the church is just like you described, we have a host of issues as a church we want to serve in and everything else. I'd like to say, okay, we've knocked down that enemy. It's under the feet of Jesus. Move on to the next enemy, next evil we're gonna abolish and get rid of. The church can say, because it comes as a function of the church and ministries of the church, and you're focusing in on this. You know what you're supposed to be doing and what your goal is. So you can say easily, all right, we're done. Good. Praise God. Now we're just going to celebrate and move on and never ask for another penny.
Yeah, because there's work to be done.
Yeah.
I would love to be correcting certain bad paleontological presuppositions or geological. I'm more into natural history and science and that sort of stuff than this. The problem was, as I was doing that, and then I was like, yeah, but people are dying.
Right.
The creation, evolution, intelligent design stuff is important. I understand.
And fascinating.
Yeah. And enjoyable. And it's not heart-wrenching all the time. But, it's kind of like I've told my wife, and my wife likes that. And she likes that I like that, and I don't like speaking. She says, when we abolish abortion, you want to get back into that?
You get back into it?
Yes, I just want to do dinosaur stuff.
Well, Russell, think about what in terms of like what's more beneficial in like where you could receive more accolades and praise. Well, it's as a Christian fighting for creation and the evidence of God and showing this. Christians will just adore that. That was so helpful, wonderful. You don't make a lot of enemies truly in that realm.
You're not going up and being like, repent of your apathy and indifference. You have fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter. We're going to pass an offering plate.
Yeah. This realm is a realm of sacrifice and pain, and it's a realm of ridicule and being vilified, interestingly, by people that you thought were on your team.
Yeah.
It's not enjoyable.
And it's not one where you're getting tons of money. That's the other thing.
No.
They're sending, I mean, some of the pro-life organizations that are fighting us, dear brother, you were speaking and you were talking about Kathy and the organization, comes up to me in the middle of your talk or right after your talk, and he's like showing me like their financials. I'm like, not only is she fighting to keep abortion legal, she's also getting paid very nicely.
Yep.
And it's like they're showing me this stuff, and I'm like, what? I mean, I looked at it in their budget, and I was like, what would Free the States do to abortion with that budget?
I know. Every year we started this. We started like minimal budget. We're just squeezing as much as we could out of just dollars. I'm not getting paid. Luke's not getting paid. And as we move on every year, we're like, okay, God's giving us more, so we can ask for a little bit more. And we're getting to the point now where this year we had the largest budget so far, but we also now have a lot more to do and to pay for. And it's such an expensive process.
And you've got legislation you need to support.
Yeah, exactly. But when
it's more expensive.
But it does. And the challenge is, I don't want to ever ask for another penny. I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah,
I don't want to do it.
And when I was calling you, I was like, hey, Jeff, do you need a hotel, flight, and blah, blah. And you're like, we do not want to be a burden. Right. I really appreciate it. I was like, we do not want to be a burden on anyone in this battle.
Yeah, that's the key.
Because we all know that the funds are short.
We've always said that we've got to make sure we do this in a way where we do not burden the churches and people we're serving. But when you think about the budget that we have compared to many of these pro-life organizations, it's pennies.
$20 million.
It's like pennies compared to what they have. Yeah. And I feel the same way. If I had that budget, it would be straight devastation.
I was always thinking, when they got 500,000 to 1 million pro-lifers in Washington, D.C., they're just like walking in a circle.
Yeah.
I was like, you put 500,000 abolitionists in D.C., they will push it into the Potomac.
It's over.
We're like, just get rid of it. We don't freaking care. There's so many drop cards in the subway. Just shut the subway down. But anyway, we're busy and there's a lot going on. I don't know if we want to touch any other things, but there's just so much material. I would say that if any parts of these things that Jeff has said or any of us said, you need to look up the talk, and if by the time this airs, we need to put the link to Jeff's sermons in descriptions.
Yeah.
And just say, continue to follow up, because we would have you sit here and talk for days and days and days and days.
Well, we're going to be together a lot more, Lord willing, obviously, but we have a lot of work to do together over the next year, so we'll be seeing each other more.
Yep.
Yeah, and just one more note on that, the financial stuff. It has a very odd impact on both the people giving and the people receiving in the pro-life industry, because you kind of set this up. It is a job. You're setting yourself up so that this is what I do. I go on campuses and I fight for preborn babies and stuff like that. And you get in the mindset of 9 to 5 for the preborn, and they get in the mindset of passing on responsibility. And like abolitionists have always been like, it's not just financials. It's you have to act every single day like people are being murdered.
It's not parachurch.
What does it look like?
All members of the church, all their different gifts working together.
Yeah. It's not a job. You have to go out and you have to love your preborn neighbor. If you're giving financially, great. But we're asking more of you. We're asking more of us. Yeah. We're looking at ourselves and saying, am I truly loving my preborn neighbor today who is being murdered if I could do things that would save them? And so that's we're asking more of everyone. We're not asking less of everyone, but it's not merely financials.
Yep. And there's a certain thing that just comes in, and I know there's always sort of like this filthy lucre thing in the Bible and, being aware of this stuff. But man, I have heard from pro-life leaders who are like, hey, between you and me, like, I'm a 5 sola, I'm a tulip guy, I'm a Calvinist. But I would never say anything about that. I think Catholics, I think it's a false gospel, but I would never say anything about that because our biggest funders are the Catholics. And I'm like, okay, so what you're saying is affected by the funding. And therefore, that might explain why you're not gospel-centered.
Yeah. Yeah. And
it's all connected.
Yeah. we're really excited for the airing of this episode. We're really glad to have you in here.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
I think we're going to be running.
We could keep on recording, but it'd be better just to go get some lunch.
We have to get lunch. Yeah.
Get lunch and on to the next.
We're gonna get lunch. And then you got an interview for a documentary that's coming out pretty soon here that our friends Dusty Devers and Brett Baggett are putting out. We're really excited for that.
It's a really good one. But anyway, just maybe.
Episode 26.
Hey.
Here it is. Next week, we'll be back with episode 27. Yeah. So do you have something else?
No. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, brother.
And thanks for watching, liking, sharing.
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome.
Nate Schmaltzy next week.
Nate Schmaltzy.